Hi guys, Greg Friedberg back here with the postseason recap of Survivor Time and Change Buckeye Battles, and I have a very special guest with me today, Muriel Ossip, the runner-up of Survivor Time and Change Buckeye Battles, our first ever season. Muriel, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. It was just so cool to watch the season, and now I have a lot of thoughts on about it, so I'm excited to talk about it.
And we're going to delve into all of those. So what we're going to do in this interview is we're going to start from the very beginning and dissect your game.
All right.
Every bit and piece that we need to talk about. But, just like I did with Jackson, I want to start actually at the way end with, on April 8th, you walk in to that room, the Sphinx Centennial Suite, where we had final tribal council.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just talk through that night, because you had an opportunity that 14 other people did not get to have,
Right.
walking into that room as a contestant in the final two.
It was just crazy, the whole game was just like an emotional roller coaster. I was freaking out at every turn, but when I went into the final tribal council, I kind of had just accepted everything, and I was like, I made it. I'm going to try my best here. I was just super excited to be there, and also just pumped that Jackson and I made it. And I was just excited to be there, but also really stressed out.
And we'll get into all that. But that night, obviously, very special.
Yeah.
Because it caps off an experience that really only a select few have been able to have so far at Ohio State. Myself, I haven't even had that. And as the person who facilitated the Survivor Time and Change experience alongside Exec and alongside crew, you guys have still had something that we haven't had. And I want you to talk about maybe the overarching Survivor Time and Change experience and what it meant to you, especially as a freshman. Because this was such a change of pace from your everyday college life.
Right. Going into Survivor, I didn't know what to expect. I was just super excited, but I never really thought that it would be as big as it kind of felt by the end. And I didn't know what kind of player I wanted to be on Survivor. I just thought, I'm gonna try my best here, but it may not work out. But then through the game, I really just gained some confidence, found myself saying, hey, maybe I can get a week farther. And by the end of it, I was just so proud of everyone and just really excited to be a part of the whole thing. It just consumed my life. While I was in class, I thought about it all the time. When I went to bed, I thought about it all the time. Sometimes I dreamt about it. And sometimes I'd be about to go to sleep, and Jackson would text me and be like, wait, I have something to tell you, and I'd run over to his dorm in my pajamas, and it was just so crazy. But I really do think it changed me as a person, and I was not shy, I wouldn't say, but I was just very conscious about what others thought of me before Survivor. And after it, I kind of just let that go and be I'm just confident in myself, and I know that I can do very big things, you know?
And I think that's, I want you to speak specifically to something you told me this summer, was that after this whole experience, you talked about this in an interview, didn't you?
Oh yeah, in a job interview.
Yeah, so let's talk about why was Survivor relevant to that? You brought something that really to most probably isn't relevant to their career.
Right.
You brought it to a job interview. I think that's a really cool story.
Yeah, well, it was working at games at a carnival type thing, and so I was saying how it was kind of manipulative games where you don't always win, and so you kind of have to draw them in. And I was wow, I could do that on Survivor. But honestly, I feel I could talk about it in any job interview, just hey, I'm not afraid to just do things for myself to get ahead. Yeah.
Cool. So then, having watched it all back,
Yeah.
you've seen all 12 episodes. A lot of your friends, your family have seen it all.
Yeah.
So I want your initial thoughts and feelings, and also how you feel about your reception, because objectively speaking, people received you very positively.
Yeah.
You were one of the most, if not the most popular player on this season. Aside from Will Wall, who obviously people already knew who he was.
Right.
People didn't know you.
Yeah.
But now people do.
I mean, in all honesty, watching this, like, I can barely watch the episodes. I just, like, do not like myself in them a lot. I'm really proud of what I did, but I'm, like, the word I've been using is harsh. Like, I just feel harsh watching them back because even though, like, I am, like, confident and I do stick up for myself, like, I've never done it that much. And so it's, like, really a pain to watch them at this point. But then I always read the comments and, like, that's not the response that I'm expecting. Everyone's super nice and, like, you know, like, cheering me on, and it makes me feel really good about myself. And even, like, my extended family, who, like, I would think would be like, oh my gosh, you cursed, or, like, oh my gosh, like, you said something kind of mean, like, they're all really supportive, and that makes me happy, and my friends are all really happy about it too. So I was, like, surprised at the reception I got, but I'm happy I got it.
Right. And I think that in the end, a 4-3 vote, obviously, that speaks a lot to your gameplay. And I think we've really seen you come alive. And as someone who, from when we casted you, we never expected you to go as far as you did. And you know that.
They put me last in their rankings, like their, what's it?
Yeah, we have like a preseason draft and everything that we made for season 1. And
I was last in pretty much all of them.
She was second to last in mine.
Okay.
And she surprised everyone. Yeah. And I think that it speaks a lot to your game. And you really surprised a lot of people, both like within the game and outside of it. And I think that that's awesome. So congrats on that. So then, watching it back also, and I know you've seen. Have you seen all of it? I mean,
yes. Sometimes I'll just skim over the parts where I'm like too crazy, but I've seen most of all of it.
So watching it back, then, what surprised you about it? Did someone's gameplay specifically, or like something about the game in general, surprise you?
When you're playing, well, at least for me, when I was playing Survivor, like, I literally thought it all revolved around me because obviously I was playing it, so it just felt like everything was me, but then you watch it and obviously there's a bunch of different storylines and things happening, so it's really cool to just see everyone else's confessionals and stuff where everyone else is going hard. Obviously, Allie and Kelsey, for a lot of the game, I did not respect their games. I mean, but now, like, I see, like, they played great games. Who else? I was really impressed by Lisa, honestly. I thought her confessionals were very intelligent, and, almost everyone, like, kind of knew what was up. Like, yeah, they might have gotten voted out, but even Andrew, by the end, like, I thought he had no idea he was getting voted out, but he was like, these girls might vote me out. So I think everyone knew what was going down, so that's impressive.
And I think that's coming from the person who you voted Lisa out of the game, right?
Yeah, yes.
So, and we'll get to that vote and how that everything shook down with that. Yeah. But I think that that's kind of the amazing thing about the edit, is that you get to see that there were 15 other people playing, right? And I think that one thing that'll never show up on camera, and now that people know, with Jackson winning, and everyone actually came back for season 2.
Yes.
For the kickoff of season 2. We had 13 out of 16 people came back for that, just to see it. And something that Jackson said was, 15 of you are going to lose, right?
Yeah.
He told this to season 2.
That was so lovely. Thanks,
right.
Jackson.
Right, and so when he says that, first of all, I thought he had given away the whole entire season result, and I was like, Jackson, I told you not to spoil this. But I think that another thing that he was saying with that is, 15 of you are going to lose, so you might as well play the game hard, and have your own agendas and everything. And I think that that's something you get to see.
Yes, and I feel like that's kind of what I did, because in the beginning I wasn't so loud, and then when I got my first votes, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end. Like, might as well just, like, do everything I want to do on Survivor while I have the chance.
Cool.
So, yeah.
So then, let's talk about your strategy.
Yes.
You come in, and the first thing you say on camera is, I'm going to play dumb.
Yeah.
You want to play down how threatening you can be. And then eventually, we see this development of a very confident, strong player, who eventually it became probably impossible for you to play this dumb character that you wanted to portray to people, because they realized how strong of a player you were. But let's talk about that growth from why you stepped in with this I want to play dumb and then how you saw yourself grow throughout the experience.
Okay, so I'm going to get a little serious here. After Survivor, I kind of realized that it's very easy for me to play dumb as like a coping mechanism when things don't go my way. Like when something goes wrong, it's probably just easier for me to like be all ditzy so like I don't feel any responsibility for it. And so I feel like I did that a lot before Survivor, so I was good at it. And so I'm like, I don't know, like a lot of people in my life would just tell me like you're ditzy or naive or something like that. So it was a very easy role for me to fit in, and I think I did it well in the beginning. Like I think not many people viewed me as like, I don't know, this power play or anything. But then by the end of it, I was like, screw it. Like, if I'm just, like, not gonna be seen as a huge threat because I'm playing dumb, and I'll just be dragged to the end where someone thinks they can beat me, whether they could or not, like, there's no point to that. And I was just like, I'm just gonna go for it, like, enough with playing dumb because it's not me. And by the end of it, I kind of wanted to be, like, just me. Yeah.
And I think we all saw that, and it was really cool to see that, because the first thing that you told most of us when you were done was how much of a confidence boost this was, and that you could do things. And I think we touched on this in Final Tribal Council, is especially just, you came alive in those last couple of Tribal Councils, and winning that challenge at Final 5, and just everything had transformed from this player that maybe wasn't so confident into someone who was very confident and strong regardless of what happened in the game.
Yeah, like, I never really viewed, like, before Survivor, I guess I never really viewed myself as, like, I guess, like, intelligent, really. But then after Survivor, I was like, hey, like, it's just, like, that game was just as much my game as anyone else's, and I made good moves, I think. And it also just gave me a lot of confidence to speak up for myself. Like, before, I think I was very concerned with making everyone like me, and so like I just felt like, okay, so people don't like me, like fine, I don't care. Like as long as like I like me, that's what's important.
And that is what's important.
Yeah.
So then let's move on to this partnership that you have with Jackson. So I asked him the same question, I'm going to ask you it. Why Jackson? Because you guys get together very early in the game and you make this alliance that carries you all the way to the end.
I like, when I meet people for the first time, I'm a very like vibey person. Like I instantly just know if we're gonna click and have like a good vibe. And Jackson, from like the first moment we talked on like the kickoff, I was just like, wow, I get good vibes from you. And I mean, I thought right, because we just had so much fun together, and like we would literally talk every single night, and it's just crazy. Like we just had a lot of fun.
So then moving on through that relationship, you guys, and we'll go through like the turns and the twists and turns of that relationship, and especially at the merge, but were you surprised when at the end he has this opportunity to cut you off or to take you? Were you surprised?
I was not surprised he took me to the final two, because he would literally look me in the eyes every day and tell me he was taking me to the final two. So I was like, I don't think he's going to go back on it after all of that. Granted, I really was thinking, like I was weighing my options between Allie and Jackson, and I also looked him in the eye saying I was going to take him. But I just really didn't think he was going to go back on it. He was like, I know what I'm going to say when I write Allie's name down. Like, so it was like I thought he was taking me.
Cool.
I didn't know if that was the right choice though, but I knew he was taking me.
So he takes you.
Yeah.
And the perception at the time from a lot of people was that you were the head of this pair. And it might be viewed as, for, like at the time then, that he made the wrong decision because you could potentially beat him. So going into Final Tribal Council, did you think that you were going to beat him?
No. I thought that I like literally had no idea what the jury was thinking. For example, I thought like the one vote I had in lock was Max, which is like totally wrong. So I was just confused. Like all your perceptions are kind of like crazy when you're in Survivor, and I really didn't know. I knew people were telling me I was a bigger player, but I didn't think that I was. But then after the final tribal speech, I did think I gave a stronger final tribal speech, and I was like, okay, like, I think I won. I was wrong, though. But, yeah, like, I thought it was a fair fight between Jackson and I, and I really had no idea.
Do you think that had you won that challenge, would you have made the same decision in taking Jackson?
I think I would, because I think Jackson said something very good, which is, like, Allie just knew so much more than us, and, like, maybe it's, like, hard to see with an edit, like, how much Jackson and I really didn't know, but, like, we didn't know a lot compared to Allie. Like, Allie just knew a bunch of things that we didn't, and so any information that she had was better information than ours. So, yeah.
And so I want to analyze the vote now, and then we'll go into pre-merge and post-merge and everything. But with that final vote, I think it speaks volumes to both you and Jackson. I've said this over and over, that a 4-3 vote, first of all, for the first ever season is incredible, and not something that I expected. And second of all, I think speaks volumes to your game and how people saw that. And a lot of people questioned their vote and said, should I vote for Muri? She performed really well. I realized her game a lot more. And in the end, a 4-3 vote, all it took was one more. So do you think, like, what is your biggest regret in the game, going back to how you could have maybe, like, managed the jury better or something like that?
Okay, well, I knew, like, Tyler's vote was kind of in lock, so I'm not going to go into Tyler's vote because I see why he would vote for Jackson. They were, like, really good friends in the game, and I never really was. That being said, Will changed his vote last minute, so I'm not too sure what I could have done about that. But I'm, like, sticking with saying he made a bad move because I thought it at the time. Then there's Kelsey and Max. So Kelsey didn't vote for me, I think, because of when I told her that I didn't think she could win. But I honestly think that I would have never gotten Kelsey's vote. And just like I would have never voted for Kelsey. So it's a two-way street. But, like, if you see, like, in the Touchy Subjects Challenge, we've both voted each other, like, not living up to our full potential. Even though we had been in a merge, the swap situation where we, like, saw each other making, like, big blindside moves, I think it was just our perception of each other. And when she was in a conversation with Max, she was like, I don't think Muriel's that big of a player. Just like I thought Kelsey wasn't that big of a player. So I don't really know if there's anything we could have done about those perceptions about each other. But I don't think it was just that moment that made her not vote for me. And then Max, we had our fights, and I guess he just thought Jackson was a better player. So he said maybe that he didn't vote for me because I said I never wanted his jury vote, which is a fight that you guys didn't see. But he said to me first that he was never going to vote for me on jury, so...
It's a two-way street.
Yeah, what was I going to say?
It's a two-way
street.
street.
So, like, I really don't have any regrets on how I managed anything. I'm proud of it, and honestly, like, for me, this whole experience was, like, the journey is the reward type thing, and while I would have liked to win, like, I think, like, Jackson really did deserve his win. I think he just knows a lot more about Survivor than I do, and I think he deserves it.
So, and then going into that, and knowledge of Survivor is useful, but one thing that I think you and Jackson both brought to the table that really not a lot of other people did was your knowledge of Big Brother, which is a game that's very similar socially to a college Survivor game.
Right. Because
you don't see all the conversations that are happening, and people are like best friends in the house, but then at the end of the day, they're all trying to get to the end. And I think that Big Brother is a very social game, and I think that Survivor on a college campus is very social. So what did you bring from Big Brother that you think helped you in the game? Because you knew that game very well.
Yeah. I think Big Brother is a lot more about, like, personality. Like, honestly, before Survivor Time and Change, I had seen, like, 4 seasons of Survivor, and, like, 2 of them I skimmed. So, like, not a huge Survivor player, or, watcher. So, like, really all I had was Big Brother and Survivor Maryland, which I did watch. So, I think really I thought it was... I really thought everything was about big moves. Like, I didn't understand social games, like, at all. And I really thought they were, like, I didn't really even respect them, which is crazy because now after, like, I don't know, watching this season and, like, watching more Survivor, I'm like, okay, social games are, like, good. But I never really understood that. And also on Big Brother, it's just, like, huge personalities, like, all the time. So I kind of thought that's what Survivor was, too. But I'm discovering that it's more nuanced than I thought.
Cool. So then, moving on from there, let's talk about this realization of you and Jackson. Obviously, during the pre-merge, you guys are very close. You get split up at the swap, and we'll talk about that. And you guys come back together at the merge. In the first vote, you're on the right side of the numbers. But then, out of nowhere, it seems as if those next two votes put you guys completely on the outs. And Jackson touched on this in his interview, and you've seen it throughout the season with how on the outs you guys were. So let's talk about that transition from being in this power alliance of you and Jackson, the Savage Six, and then being in the Three Queens, and then out of nowhere, you're on the outs.
And it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of times in Survivor, the best players are the one that like aren't really powerful in the beginning, but by the end like have accumulated a lot of power. So it's a weird dynamic when like in the beginning of the game you're like, I got this, like it's good, and then as you go further, it's like, oh my god, another vote where I literally had no idea what was happening. But I will say that Ali and Kelsey and Vinny, like, did a good job at making you feel like you weren't on the bottom all the time. So I didn't really feel that way, but especially after the Jake vote, like, Jackson and I were just like, what? Like, how? And so we were just like, we gotta keep doing stuff. Like, the Tyler vote, where he got voted out. I think Jackson and I, well, maybe just me, like, we really felt like it was frustrating to watch Tyler, like, not really rally up something at the tribal council to, like, do something. And that made me just be like, I just gotta, like, do everything just to get to the end.
Cool. So then, with, like, that being on the outside, I think one thing that a lot of people see is you and Jackson become this underdog role, right, in the game. And do you think that being the underdog is beneficial in the game? Did you enjoy being in that role, or do you not even think that you were an underdog?
I think we were underdogs, but like a more impressive underdog I feel like would have been like Jake, like getting to the end, because we did have power in the beginning. It was a little like infuriating, which like you can see, like Jackson and I were like pissed at Ali and Kelsey because we felt like we were gonna work with you, like we were gonna give you everything you needed, and like all you had to do was just like maybe text us a couple more times to make us like really your minions. And so it just made us mad, but I guess it was fuel to the fire.
And eventually ends up costing them the game.
Yeah.
So then let's talk about this shift of the target from, once you see the episodes, you've seen that in the beginning of the game, Jackson was a huge target, right? He has this conversation with Jake, where and this conversation explodes.
Right.
It is probably one of the most critical conversations of the game, where he labels his two alliance members, Tyler and Vinny, as threats. Jake runs right to everyone else and says, hey, Jackson thinks you're threats, get rid of him. And so the target's on him. And then we get to the merge. He survives all of the things pre-merge. And out of nowhere, it seems like the target starts to transition from him onto you. And I think some of that is Max's doing. But in addition to that, from Final 7 onwards, you were a conversation of let's get rid of Muriel. So why do you think that happened?
Well, I think a big part of it was Ali, like, realizing that I had turned her against Tyler, because she kept bringing that up, like, she made that move, like, that's a huge move, like, we gotta get her out for that. And then I guess it might have been just, like, me being loud, which I think was the reason I was loud, just because, like, I don't know if I'm playing a good game, but I just gotta make these people think I'm playing a good game, so they'll vote for me at the end. Obviously, didn't work out that well, but kind of well.
We're getting 3 votes at the end. People did, I mean, Max even, not even voting for you, but Max commends you for being this character at Tribal Council and bold and confident. And I think that it definitely didn't hurt your game.
No.
By any means.
No, I don't think so.
So then, let's talk about some of the relationships you had in the game, right? So, I want to talk about Vinny first.
Okay.
Because when you said you were pissed at Allie and Kelsey, where's Vinny in that? Because Vinny kind of played the middle this whole season and tried to appease you and Jackson. So talk about that relationship.
Okay, first of all, Vinny, I feel like this wasn't really shown on the season as much, but like, Vinny played a flawless social game. Like, he took everyone out to dinner at the same pizza place, and we all never knew about it. Like, that's a good move.
Hound dogs.
And he paid for our pizza, so like, that helped too. And like, in the beginning, he was just like always like messaging me about like how much he loved Big Brother, and so like it just made you think like, oh, he's so friendly. It's like great. But then I guess I caught on to it when I said, listen, I know what you're doing. But I guess I was never really as mad at him as Allie and Kelsey, because Allie and Kelsey and I had, I thought, a good alliance. And I really, like, there was a time where I was like, Jackson or Allie and Kelsey, I literally don't know which one to pick. And I feel like if they had just, like, maybe involved me or, like, made me feel a little bit safer, I might have picked them. So that's where the anger came at with them. But, I mean, Vinny was just amazing. And, like, that's why Jackson and I chose to vote him out at 5, because I literally thought there was no way he was going to lose. Because he was just talking to everyone, super nice, and then also, like, backstabbing everyone, too, which is, like, definition of a good Survivor player, so.
Right. And so one of the more interesting conversations of the game is you and Vinny are sitting across the table from each other, and Vinny basically labels you as a threat, you label Vinny as a threat. And you guys both say, we have each other's games in each other's hands, and we can crush them at any moment. At that point in time, this was before you call him out of tribal, did you have any intention of turning on Vinny?
Well, my plan was to still get him out the week after we got Allie out. But I was like, oh, but if he trusts me, like, I'll see how it goes. But I never wanted to get that far with him because I knew he would win. Or at least I thought he would win. But he's just so nice, so you think he'll, like, really want to work with you. Yeah.
Cool. So then let's talk about Allie and Kelsey then.
Yes.
So you guys have this relationship from not only the Savage Six, but you get into the swap stage of the game. You're taken away from Jackson, and who is your number one. And you are forced to play with Allie and Kelsey, who you know that they're each other's number ones.
Yeah.
So being the third in that trio, did you feel like that trio had some legitimacy going deep into the game, or did you already know this wasn't going to fly for you?
At the beginning, I was, like, super scared. Like, I had to work with them because they were numbers and, like, I needed people to vote with. But I was always scared they were going to turn on me because we really hadn't talked that much prior to it. And obviously, I knew they were closer than they were to me. But then, as we got further into the swap stage, I was like, these girls are super cool, and, like, we're all, like, really badass and making, like, super good strategic moves. I would love to work with them. But then, once the merge came, they just stopped texting me. And that is very bad because I would always have to reach out with them. So they never really made me feel a part of their group. And I really think that they could have, like, used me for whatever they wanted to in the game if they had just made me feel a little more comfortable. But I loved working with them, and I loved all the blind sides that we did. So
You guys did run the Mirage.
I know.
You really did.
And like honestly, I think like best moves of the season. Like the Elizabeth blindside was epic, and then the Lisa vote out was super cool because we flushed Max's idol.
So let's talk about getting down to Final Four with those, right?
Yeah.
So you guys make the decision to vote out Vinny. And with that, you're left with 2 pairs. And I know from watching your development in the season, there was a point in time, should I turn on Jackson?
Yeah.
Should I go with Allie and Kelsey to Final 3? And it'll be the 3 queens. And then once Allie wins immunity at Final 4, it almost seemed as if that option was completely off the table. So talk about that.
I was just like, honestly, a lot of it was just anger. I was so frustrated how much like Jackson and I would always have to be the ones to reach out to them. And that's something you really don't see because like a lot of this game is just like finding times to meet up. And like they would just like never reach out. And like the Jake vote, we texted them, Jackson and I, like, let's meet up right before the Jake vote. And they were like, no. So it was, by that time I was just so frustrated and like just like really aggravated at them never like really reaching out to me that I was just like, okay. Like also Jackson and I voting together was a way to protect each other because if we flipped, we would never know which one of them voted us out.
Right. So then, moving on from there, you guys have this epic battle of 2 duos in the Final Four, and it made it really interesting.
Yeah.
And you get pegged as the one with the votes at Final Four.
Yes.
Not Jackson, but these 2 former Alliance members of yours go against you. And did that almost light a fire under you in that Final Four tiebreaker to make sure that you can make a statement against them?
Well, I just remember going into that Final Four Tribal Council and just being like, I'm not even nervous. Like, let's just do this thing. But because by that time you're just like, I made it to Final Four. Like, I must be doing something right. Luck might be on my side. But yeah, like, if you would, like, I don't know, because there really was a point in time where I was really choosing between them. So it's just interesting that it turned out that way.
Right. And when you take down Kelsey in that Final Four challenge,
yeah.
And I think that's a really awesome moment because it was something where, like we've talked about with Big Brother, you have this history of like knowing that game really well. And what we tried to incorporate a lot late in the game was information-based challenges or tasks that you guys needed to be a little bit more observant to pick up on and do well on. So with the advantage, especially like knowing days and the progression of the game, and then with that challenge, I mean, having these questions based on the jury and not just on votes, right? We didn't just ask like, how many votes has this person received? What day did this person get eliminated? We asked little details from the beginning of the game to see were you paying attention from start to finish, and you killed it, right?
Yeah.
So did you know those questions as like Jackson was saying, like on camera, like, I know she knows them. How confident were you in your answers that night?
I knew all those questions, and it's because, like, every night when I would go to sleep, like, I would just be replaying, like, all the happenings of what happened that day in my head. Like, the first day, which a lot of the questions were about the first day, was just, like, crazy and so exciting, and I just, like, couldn't stop thinking about it. So I guess that's how I knew it. Yeah.
And a lot of the like observation-based challenges are just very...
Yeah. And I kept a lot of color-coordinated charts on my computer that I'm very proud of.
She uploaded those to her folder, and I
Yeah.
think they're really fun to look at. It's very cool to see. Both you and Jackson, I think, were 2 of the most observant people in the game.
Yeah.
Following the progression from who got votes from who, how many votes were nullified by idols, how many, everything.
Yeah.
You did everything.
Sometimes I'd be in my classes and like just like drawing out little charts about Survivor, like while there was some boring lecture going on.
That's how you play the game.
Yes.
So then let's go into some pre-merge moments that we haven't gotten the chance to talk about. I want to talk about one very specific one that you probably know is coming. We start this game off, and you find out that someone on your floor, Lauren Hamlet, is playing the game alongside you. And I think that this vote almost gets lost in the story's narrative because it was so early.
Yeah, I wish I had talked about it at the final tribal council because it went well, that vote. But when I saw her, I was just like, I wanted to play this game with just a blank slate, and also just having her in the dorm just made everything a little bit more trickier. So I was just like, the minute I can get her out, it's just for the better. That being said, after that vote, I felt so awful. I was literally maybe I should just quit. This is not my personality, to just lie to someone's face like that. But I got over it.
Yeah. And obviously so did she. And
yes.
So, and the viewers know this by now, but she joins the production crew 2 weeks later. We're all friends, and life is great.
Yes.
So,
and we're good now. Yes.
So, then moving on from that Lauren vote, the formation of the Savage Six. And you were pegged as one of the people Tyler, as the person who brings this alliance together, right?
Tyler.
So Tyler brings this alliance together. And how good did that feel to know that you were in this Power 6 within an 8?
It feels so good because from watching Survivor Maryland's, I kind of knew that they're usually there's Big Brother. Usually in the beginning there's big alliances that form. They never work out, but they form. And I was just so excited to be a part of something because it made me feel safe. And it's weird because I feel really Allie, Kelsey, Vinny, Jackson, and Tyler had more of a direct approach of getting into that Savage Six, while I was just kind of dragged along into it by Jackson, and then also Tyler being I like her. So I'm just really thankful that I got into that because that helped me a lot through the game.
And obviously 5 of the 6 making it the final 5.
Super impressive. I love the Savage Six.
The split from Jackson.
Yeah.
You guys, there are a lot of pairs in the game very early. And especially with Allie and Kelsey, you guys always get juxtaposed to them. But the difference in the swap stage of the game for you was you got split up from Jackson. But one thing that never stopped was the communication. So talk through why you and Jackson stayed in touch throughout the whole swap.
I honestly just think there was no one else I could really relate to or be my total self in front of except for Jackson, because we were just always freaking out, and it was just nice at the end of the day, after meeting with Allie and Kelsey and getting in a fight with Max, to just be Jackson, I need advice or something. And I think we both gave each other advice, and it was nice to play on my own because I was I can be this player by myself, but at the same time I had a friend who I could vent to.
And he said the same thing.
Yeah.
On camera, and he said at the end of the day, you guys did just vent to each other, and it's
we vented so much.
Right. And I saw a lot of that, and I didn't see a lot of it, and a lot of it's not even on camera, but I know that.
Well, we would talk for 3 hours sometimes. It was crazy.
Which I think speaks a lot to just the passion you guys had for the game, because a lot of that I didn't want to see, but I knew was going on.
Yeah.
So, moving on from that, you guys get split up, and the next kind of big stage was when you were on that swap tribe. Somehow, some way, whether it's through Facebook, I apparently heard it was, you sniff out this relationship of Tyler and Elizabeth, who in the beginning of the game, a lot of the viewers perceive them. The second they get to the merge, this is a power couple.
It was also during the competition that happened right after the swap. They were just talking very casually, they knew each other. So that's where I caught on to. But yeah, I don't know. Elizabeth just seemed like someone who could be very powerful, and I was if she's talking to Tyler, let's just get rid of her.
And you were the one who spearheaded
Yeah,
that.
something I also should have talked about in my final tribal council speech. I should have talked about my pre-merge stuff, because honestly, that was the best part, in my opinion, in my game.
Cool. So then, moving on from that Elizabeth vote out, you wanted to cut off Tyler's resources, and then the next thing that happens is Andrew replaces Elizabeth, and it's interesting because this is something I haven't talked about with anyone yet. You and Andrew had a very interesting relationship in the game. He seemed to trust you miles more
I know.
And then you trusted him. So talk about that relationship a little bit.
For some reason, not many people trusted Andrew, even though I feel like he could have been one of the most trustworthy people because he hadn't watched a lot of Survivor and just thought it was like when it's time to vote someone out, you like form some alliances and then you vote the people out. Like, I really did like my conversations with Andrew, and I think it would have been really cool if I had gone to him and said, like, listen, you're on the outs, but, like, I really want to work with you. But by the time it was time to vote him out, like, there were just no votes to save him. But Andrew and I have talked a lot since the season ended, and he's super cool. And in another Survivor world, I would have loved to work with him more.
Despite the fact that his idol was faker than Tyler.
Yes, I freaked out because I thought that he had made that idol to trick me. I didn't know that he was really naive and just found it by himself.
Kudos to Will.
Yeah, that was a good move.
So Andrew goes home, and I think the one thing that kind of overshadows those 3 votes was a specific relationship between you and Max that did play out in the end game. So you and Max, as soon as Elizabeth goes home, seem to be bitter rivals.
Yeah, like here's the thing. I would never just start fighting with someone, like, for no reason, but, like, he was the one who kind of started it, and then granted, like, I really took it to heart and, like, kind of went crazy, but he was just always making comments, and you didn't see one fight that happened after the coin stacking competition, where I was just, like, walking back, I think, and he just, like, started being like, you're going home, I have an idol, you're never getting my jury vote. It was just crazy, and I don't know, like, I think I said this in the end, but I think he was just here to have fun, and I can appreciate that, and we're all good now, so.
Good. And in the game, that rivalry, obviously, it was fun to watch. It was very entertaining, and I'm glad that you guys have come to terms, because
Yes.
Max and I will be doing an interview later on where he's going to FaceTime in with Jake and Tyler, actually, later this week. So I'm really excited to talk to Max about that and see it from the other side, because I know he respected your game more than you know. And I want to just make sure you're aware of that.
Oh, I totally know. And Max and I, it feels like we've apologized to each other like 5 times now already, but we're like good. And I just appreciate you having fun with Survivor, because that's what I did, so.
Cool.
Yeah.
So then Max gets voted out of Final 9. You're on the right side of the vote. Let's talk about the merge now, because you're on the right side of that vote. It went exactly as you guys planned, whatever. You get to 8, and Tyler gets eliminated. And what a lot of people, and I talked about this with Kelsey and Allie, was you were a little bit more in the loop than the edit probably makes it seem.
Yeah, what you didn't
vote.
see was that Allie really did sit me down and be like, I'm voting for Tyler, Kelsey's voting for Tyler, I think Vinny might be voting for Tyler. And it seems like Will's voting for Tyler, so, like, you can do what you want, but, like, you could vote for Tyler.
And I do want to bring up another thing that I also talked about with Allie and Kelsey that was completely cut from the edit. And the reason that I want to bring this up is because what surprised me most about the Tyler vote was the reason I would cut a lot of this stuff from the edit was that you still ended up voting alongside Tyler and Jackson. You didn't vote out Tyler. And so that's why a lot of this gets cut. But there was a situation.
Yes.
This is fun. So Muri decides to take a Snapchat of Jackson. I'll let you can tell the story.
Okay, I'll tell the story. So the meeting with Tyler, Jackson, me, and Vinny ends, and I'm like rewatching it back because we film it on our computer, so like we watch it back, and like Jackson's making this super funny face where he just looks like in distress and bored. So I took a picture of it, and I meant to send it to Jackson on Snapchat, and under it I wrote, like, when Tyler says he's been playing an honest game this whole time, I roll. And then I meant to send it to Jackson, but I put it on my Snapchat story where everyone can see it, including Tyler and Allie and, like, literally everyone. And so that was just a whole catastrophe, and you should see the video of Jackson and I freaking out over that because that was crazy. And so then I had to explain myself to Tyler. Maybe he can play you the voicemail where I do it, and it was just a mess.
I do have that video, and I mean, only because I'm doing all this stuff and I want to explain the stories that weren't on film.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to be uploading it to YouTube. I'm
it's
sorry,
probably
guys.
for the best.
But it was a mess. But at the end of the day, you end up still voting alongside Tyler. So talk me through that.
Well, technically, so I was pretty sure that Allie, Kelsey, Jake, and Will were going to vote for Tyler. I wasn't sure about Vinny because at that point I really thought Vinny was on our side. So then I was like, well, that leaves Tyler, Vinny, and Jackson voting for Jake, I thought. And I was like, well, if I just vote for Will, then it makes me seem like I'm not against Tyler in case for some reason he stays, but then I'm not against Allie and Kelsey either because, like, I'm not really voting to protect Tyler. But by the end of that, like, I couldn't even explain myself because I was just so flustered because now it really felt like I was on the outs even though I kind of knew Tyler was going home. So I just didn't even know how to explain that Will vote.
And so we're going to dive deeper into this Tyler thing because this, in the perception of Allie specifically, was what some may call a game-winning move, right? And she said that at Final Tribal Council and throughout the game, said this pinning of me against Tyler and Tyler against me, regardless of the truth to it, is a game-winning move for Muriel. And at the end of the day, it bought you a ton of respect. But what's most interesting about the vote is you indirectly caused Tyler's vote off.
And then I didn't vote Tyler
But you
out.
didn't vote him out. So, I mean, you talked through that, obviously, and a lot of what the Tribal Council also was a lot of paranoia. People start talking and everything's going crazy. So what were you thinking during all that time?
I honestly thought I might be going home because it was my worst fear that week that Allie and Tyler might talk and be like, wait, Muriel said you wanted me out? Like, I thought that might happen. So I really had no idea what was going to happen because I thought there might be a chance that everyone caught on to me. And then you also didn't see this, but, like, I had a phone call with Vinny where, like, I was like, so who are you voting for, Tyler or Jake? And he was like, oh, definitely Jake, like, definitely Jake. And so then I was like, maybe he sees that I'm, like, kind of catching on to him and, like, he might try to get me out. I was just so confused, so.
Obviously a monumental vote. And
Yeah.
so that breaks up the Savage Sex. And then you guys didn't really get a break because that next vote, I think, solidified the fact that you were on the outs.
And that really it was just Allie, Vinny, and Kelsey who were controlling everything.
Right.
Because they were the only three that voted right. So, honestly, for that vote, I thought I was going home too.
This is the Jake vote.
Yeah, Jake vote. I thought I was going home too. So, like, literally every time I'd, like, get out of the vote and I'd be like, wait a second, what? Like, I'm still here? But I think that honestly was a really bad move by Allie, Kelsey, and Vinny because by making you three the only people who are voting right, that shows that you're in control. And they could have gotten Will and Jake and said, hey, let's vote out Muri or Jackson, or they could have gotten me and Jackson and say, hey, we're going to vote out Jake. I honestly think if they told us they were going to vote out Jake, we'd be like, okay. Like, as long as it's not us, so.
And so with that vote, you guys kind of get shoved to the side, and I think that that's really where the game starts changing. And
Yeah.
Jackson talks about this a lot, because one thing that I almost think Vinny may have abused in the game was his relationship with Jackson and his relationship with you, because he would always try to play the middle. And so we get to Final Six, and that's where this gets a huge boiling point between you and Vinny.
Yeah.
You were sick of Vinny's shit. You know?
You like, it's hard to understand just how much Vinny would lie and, like, just, like, be very manipulative. Like, just in every little thing he'd say, he'd lie. And then he'd go on, like, tangents about jury votes, and, like, I didn't know if anything what he was saying was true, and I just kind of, like, blocked it out after a certain point. But, so, like, yeah, it was just, like, he would lie all the time. And I was just like, I'm sick of this.
And then you call him out at Final Six Tribal
Yes.
Council, which I think is one of the biggest stages for you, because
Yeah.
this is a point in time where we talked about having each other's games in each other's hands, and that was the point where you clenched your fist on Vinny's game before he could do it on you, and then we start duking it out.
I know. I was so angry at Vinny. After that vote and during that tribal council, I looked at him and he was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, you rat. Like, I'm just done with this. And so I had to do what I had to do.
And one of the more ironic parts of that tribal council is despite the fight, and despite the fact that he puts votes on you, why do you end up putting your votes on Will?
Okay, so I really wanted to vote for Vinny, but at the end of it, I was like, I know I don't have the votes to get Vinny out, and it's better to just protect myself. So I voted for Will. He was an easy vote, but I mean, it turned out well. I don't know what would have happened next if we had voted out Vinny. I don't know. Well, we would have never had the votes, so
Right.
nothing.
And then moving forward, we're actually moving a little bit backward from that tribal council, another thing that kind of added to that paranoia and that fire was the fact that you guys didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
So you guys get back from spring break, and I told you from the very beginning, I said, we're going to hit the ground running, reserve most of your night, and everyone's like, oh, endurance challenge.
Yes, I had a bag packed full of snacks. I made sure not to eat that much. I made sure to take a nap before, so I was prepared. I practiced on the poles. And then when I found out it was tribal council, I was just shocked and super nervous.
And you had this plan going in preemptively to stop targeting Will.
And get Allie out.
And get Allie out. So why was that? We see this shift in strategy from you and Jackson. Why did you guys decide to target Allie instead?
Because it was clear that Will, Jackson, and I weren't really running anything at that point. So, you gotta go for the big threats. And at least I viewed those big threats as Allie and Vinny. And the plan was to get Allie out first and then get Kelsey to flip on Vinny after Vinny had just voted out Kelsey's closest ally. But obviously plans changed. Good on Allie for winning that competition, because I'm not sure if she would have stayed.
I don't think she would have, objectively speaking. Vinny can say what he wants to that, but and we'll be talking about that later, Vinny. So then that vote happens, and you guys get rid of Will.
Yeah.
You get to Final Five, and I think I've talked a lot about this vote in that when I depicted it in the edit, I knew the whole week you and Jackson were dead set. We're voting Vinny, no matter what, because you win that immunity challenge, and we'll talk about that in a sec, but you win. You guys are both immune. It doesn't matter where other votes go at that point, because even if it goes to a tie, you and Jackson are still involved in the revote and still can pick.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you guys chose Vinny to target in Final Five. And I think we've talked about this already, but why Vinny over Allie, who you were targeting the previous week?
I thought Vinny had a 100% chance of winning the game, especially after, how he handled the, 6th tribal council. I thought, that was when it really started hitting me that, okay, Vinny, Allie, and Kelsey have been working together this whole time, but Vinny's been the one in the middle. And that's bad because that makes you win at the final tribal council.
Yeah. So then Vinny gets out, and we've talked about Final Four and what happened with that. But another thing to talk about at 5 that was something that really shocked a lot of people, and I think was a huge confidence boost for you especially, is that at Final 5, we have a pretty physical challenge. I mean, it's a lot of running, and it's a lot of just focus, and it took a while. And we have that Final 5 counting challenge and the combination locks, and you win.
Yeah.
So how did that feel for you?
Awesome, because math has never been my strong suit, so all of a sudden I was like, what? I just won a math competition? How did this even happen? I was just super proud of myself. Something you didn't really see in the edit was that I pretty much knew Jackson had the idol before in that comp, because he would always allude to it, but at that point it was pretty clear, even though he never explicitly said it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wow, now I don't even need to worry about him playing it on me. I just saved myself, and it just felt so good, and it was good to win an immunity challenge, because I feel that's something to check off your Survivor experience.
And especially that's the challenge that eventually you two solidify your place in the Final Four, and that allows you to progress through the game, because had you not won it, Jackson has a decision to make.
Right.
Do you think that he would have played it on you?
Oh my gosh. I have no idea, but I honestly don't know. Did he talk about that?
I didn't ask him.
Yeah, I don't know. He said he would play it on me, but I like can't even picture myself ever playing an idol on someone who is not me, and I probably wouldn't blame Jackson if he didn't either. But so that's why I'm glad I just saved myself.
And it would have been his ticket guaranteed to Final Four.
Yeah.
So, and that's a question I should have asked Jackson, but regardless, the result ends up going in your favor.
Yeah,
and
it worked out.
So, I think we've dissected the entire game for the most part, right?
Yeah.
So, I want to talk about kind of what the fans should understand about you that we've talked a lot about, maybe what they didn't see in the edit, but what do you want to convey most about your game to people that maybe they didn't see as much?
I feel like people saw a lot of my game, like especially in the pre-merge stuff. Like I feel like I had one of the bigger edits, so I'm glad about that. I guess honestly, I think it's the final tribal council that I would have liked people to see more of. Just I don't know, like I don't really remember much from it since it was so crazy, but like Jackson saying that he was like he controlled me, like he only said it once during the final tribal council on the edit, but I don't know if he said it more. It felt like he said it more to me, and I like defended myself against that, and I guess I wish that would have been shown, because that honestly made me super upset, because I was like, are you kidding me? Like you and I both know that like we both put in our fair share, so I would like to see that. But overall, I'm really happy with my edit, at least. I think like really like you got to see everyone's like game, and everyone like made moves that they could have talked about in the final tribal council.
Cool. And so then one more thing with that is at final tribal council, I go through the votes and I read them all, and I remember the order specifically, right?
I don't.
Right? It went Muri, Jackson, Muri, Muri.
Yeah.
Jackson. And and with that, the momentum starts swinging your way in the beginning. And I think, first of all, it was a big testament to your game in that those 3 votes came from 3 very strong players in the game, right?
I agree.
And you see Vinny, the strategic mastermind of the game, right? So claimed. You have Allie, one of the strongest challenge competitors, if not the strongest in the game.
And honestly, like one of the most strategic people too.
And then Jake had a lot of influence, and that's why he was such a threat at Final 7, was that people perceived him to be this guy who could go anywhere. And there are people who perceived the game well. And I think everyone on the jury did, but I think that it's a really big testament, I keep saying it, that at the Final Tribal Council, big players respect big game. And at the end of the day, you did have a great game. And I want to commend you on that because you surprised everyone, and that was really cool for all of us to see. So, even if it came across in the edit or not, did Muri control Jackson? Did Jackson control Muri? I think neither.
No, we both did things on ourselves, and I think that's so cool that we were a pair that worked together, but we still made huge moves by ourselves.
Yes. So then let's move on to a couple other things. What was your favorite part about the game, and then what was the hardest part about it for you?
My favorite part, at the time, it was like winning and like getting farther each week, but now looking back, like I've just made some really good friends from it, and I think that's my favorite part. Also, like the growth I did see in myself, super cool, but just the friends I made are really nice. And like just like we come from like very different places, a lot of us, but we're all friends, so that's cool.
And then as for the hardest part of the game for you?
Honestly, a lot of it was like I just felt evil the whole time, and it was kind of like I was like after I do anything like a little like mean or like loud, I just feel really bad about myself. I'd be like, is this really what I want to be doing? And like, is this really what I want the world to see of me? And so that was hard. Also, like, I'm a very emotional person, and it was just so like emotionally draining, the whole thing. But good memories overall.
So then let's talk about that specifically. I've been asking everyone, if you had the chance to do it again, would you do it? And if you would, what would you do differently?
So, I don't know if I'd do it again because it was draining, and also, like, I've kind of, like, just, like, gotten Survivor out of my life these past few months. Like, I'm not watching the new season. Used to, like, browse the Survivor Reddit, not doing that because it's just, like, crazy. But I mean, especially if it was the real Survivor where you could win $1 million, I'd definitely do it again. And I'd probably do this one again, too. And I think I'd play a lot more of a social game because I never really thought that was, like, a valid strategy before. But now I'm like, okay, like, I'm good at making friends. Like, I could probably play a good social game.
Okay. And then, so we have people playing in Season 2 now. You were at kickoff, you saw all them. You know some of them who were playing.
Yeah.
So, without spoiling anything, what is your biggest piece of advice from what you learned in your season to the people playing now, to the people playing in Season 3 and beyond?
Just, like, freaking own yourself. Like, you don't need to, like, explain yourself to anyone. You don't need to feel bad about anything you do. It's like a board game. It's just like a game. And do what you want. Trust your gut. And then at the end of the day, like, don't feel like you have to apologize for anything, really.
Cool. And then now we have some fan questions as well that we're going to get into.
Okay.
Some a little more like lighthearted ones, and maybe some things that people want to know too.
Okay.
Where does all your amazing sass come from, and why? And did Survivor bring that out more than you usually use it in your regular life?
I think I've been a sassy since I was a child. I think it's just in my personality. But yeah, Survivor made it come out a lot more than it usually is. Usually, most of the time, it's in my head. Like, I'm just like making snarky comments in my head, like rolling my eyes in my head. But then when you're like in front of a camera and like you're put in like these stressful situations, I was just like sassy, I guess. But yeah, I think it's a good way to live. Just like freaking have fun.
And it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
People love that. So, you referenced Fluke in the final, right? And to a lot of people, they see Fluke played this incredible game in Survivor Terrapin Trials at the University of Maryland. And do you, like, compare you to her? And that not only runners-up, and that's not what I'm saying, because you guys both had a fire that you brought to the game. So do you see a lot of your game in hers and vice versa?
Well, first of all, I can never even get on the level that Fluke is on. Fluke is awesome, and she was, like, genuinely robbed in the end, in my opinion. But she's just awesome. I think we were just, like, unapologetic and fearless, and I think that's a great way to play Survivor, and I would love to get to know her because I feel like we'd be friends.
So if you're watching this, Fluke.
Yeah, Fluke, hit me up.
She's got you. So then someone else just wanted to say a simple I love you.
Oh, thank
whoever
you.
said that.
I probably love you too.
And then moving on, so what we talked about a lot was like how this game is so different from the real game because you're on a college campus. So how are you able to balance Survivor with a full course load and all the conversations and meetings that you had to have, and how did you not like fail out of college?
I literally don't know, and sometimes my mom will be like, how did you even like do college? And it's crazy, like I like even in all my classes I'd be like doing all my work but just thinking about Survivor, and like we'd meet at like late hours of the night and just do phone calls, and it definitely puts a stress on all your other commitments, but it's worth it, I think.
So then, this is kind of back to the strategy again. So, did you realize how difficult it would be to get Kelsey's vote? In that, like, little comments that you had said to her could have been the determining factor in your loss.
I honestly, like, I know it seems like a big thing in the edit, but I didn't really, like, in that conversation, I didn't view it as this huge thing. Like, it didn't even seem like that big of a deal to me until I watched it back and saw that it was a big deal to her. But like I said, I really do think that like we were both never going to vote for each other. At least maybe she'll have something to say on it. But I just think we both underestimated each other and didn't really think that either of us were good players. Like, I didn't really think she was doing much in the game, and she didn't think I was doing much in the game. But I think since we've watched this, like, I've definitely realized she's a great player.
Tyler wants to know, do you still hate him?
No, Tyler, I don't hate you, and I never really hated you. I just thought you were fake. And that's just the vibe I got. I'm not going to apologize for it, but I definitely don't hate you. You're an A-plus person, and we just had very different approaches to Survivor and to other things, but that doesn't mean that we still can't be great friends.
So then another one, are your opinions of Allie and Kelsey, the whole perception that Allie was the head, and I think they are different, but is your perception of that different now that you've seen everything unfold?
Jackson and I were talking about it, and we were like, Jackson was like, I think Kelsey's the bigger player, like, after watching it. And I was like, I think Allie's the bigger player. And then we were like, maybe it's because you voted for us on jury. But I just appreciated how Allie, like, was honestly just, like, a little louder than Kelsey. But, I mean, I see, like, both of the merits in their game. That being said, like, I think if they were in the finals, I think I would have voted for Allie, but that doesn't mean that Kelsey's not a great player. I literally think every single person, if they had gotten to the end, could have won. Like, I think everyone was a great player.
Cool. So then the last question I want to end on is one that, if you look in the comments of the finale section, it's
yes.
one that brought a little bit of a very valuable discussion at that. So there was a lot of heat in the last episode about sexism taking a role in the game. And I think that you have a comment in that section talking about your opinion on it. But I want you, this is your opportunity to vocalize that. So my question is, do you believe it had a role within the game? Do you believe it had a role in the final vote?
Okay. I think it definitely had a role in the game because, I mean, like, you could just see, like, 5 girls were voted out first, and then I honestly feel like Allie and me were, like, villainized a little more than any of the guys, like, even Max maybe. And I think, like, that does have a role in it. And also a lot of the girls were underestimated, but, like, that's me included. Like, I underestimated Kelsey and Allie too. So, like, yes, I think, like, in everyday culture, like, sexism still exists, but I don't think that's why I lost the game at all, and I don't think that has anything to do with Jackson winning. But I think it definitely existed in this game, and honestly, I honestly feel like Allie probably should be talking about it more, because I really think she, like, probably experienced it more in the game than I. But, yeah, I mean, I like Survivor because it lets you talk about, like, all these, like, societal issues on, like, a very small scale, and it's interesting to talk about, but I do not think any player was sexist at all.
So, and with that, I think one thing that maybe didn't come across in the edit was these conversations were happening throughout the game.
Yeah.
And especially in your and Allie's confessionals, I heard, and it's where the game started to turn, especially, with how you were the only 3 girls remaining in the game. And now, granted, you played a huge part in Elizabeth's vote.
Right.
You played a huge part in Lisa's vote. But when the game started turning after that, and we have 7 consecutive guys go home, I think that sent a very strong statement that you shouldn't be underestimated, and that this game is just as much your guys' game as it was anyone else's. And I want to say thank you for that. And I think one thing that also wasn't in the edit was people were commended for being a strong player, being a strong woman in the game. And I think that that's something that it was talked about. I also agree with you. I don't believe it played a part in the final vote.
Yeah.
But I do believe I would be naive, and I think everyone else would be naive to say.
And I mean, like, just like when girls are in power, like, they're, like, looked at a little more harshly than guys. I think that's true in, like, a lot of things. So, yes, it might have been true in Survivor, but I think no one's sexist at all. And, yeah, and it was nice, like, a lot of the times Allie and I would talk, we'd, like, talk about that. And so it was just, like, nice to just talk about it, because it should be talked about.
Cool. So with that, that's all I have from the fans, from myself, and from exec and crew. And so with that, I want to give you a final opportunity to close the book on your STC experience. So whatever you want to say.
This was just a very great learning experience, a great experience overall. I am so thankful I got to play in this. But now I'm just ready to kind of like close the book and like figure out other ways in life that I can slay. And I'm so thankful to all the viewers who watched, to all the players, to the crew, and yes, so bye, and I'm so excited for season 2, and I hope you are too.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So that is our interview with Muriel, the runner-up to Survivor Time and Change Buckeye Battles, and you will forever go down in history as one of the biggest and boldest players in the history of this game, and I think you should be commended for that. Stay tuned for other postseason interviews coming up later in the week. We'll be interviewing all of the members of the jury to hear their opinions and dissect the game piece by piece. Thank you guys so much for supporting us. Go Bucks.